now before I forget. Great to be here. If you have ever wondered, how do I get the siblings under my roof to stop fighting already, you are in the right place. If you have this issue, I would so appreciate you giving it a thumbs up. And if you know of a mom or a parent who could really use this kind of information, please do them a favor and pass it along. So, how do you get your siblings to stop fighting? This was my favorite question this week from a member in my Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group. If you're not yet a member, come join the community over there. And the reason I loved it so much is because where we started and I think where we ended was not what she thought at all. And often in parenting, we can be banging our heads against the wall, reading all the books, getting all the great advice, or thinking we're getting all the great advice, and it's still not working. Maybe you're refereeing your kids. Maybe you're talking to them and explaining. Maybe you are using certain punishments and you're like, why are they still not learning? Well, this is exactly what one of the moms who brought this to my attention this past week asked. And one of my first questions was, I always ask, and I want you to think about this yourself. What have you tried? And usually parents will give me an assortment. There might be timeouts in there. They might be yelling in there. They might be punishing in there. They might be a lot of exhaustion about explaining, taking away, trying to referee the situation. But then I ask, is it working? And almost always they say no. And so if you think of an iceberg, oftentimes you think of Titanic, an iceberg brought the Titanic down. Why is that? Because they're so focused on what's above that they're not seeing what's below. And this is equally important for finding a solution for those children, like child fights that may be driving you a bit bonkers. So just looking at my notes here, the first thing is that what is the benefit of them fighting? There is always a benefit. So just because you think your child's behavior is a problem doesn't mean they think it's a problem. In fact, if they're doing something repetitively over and over again, generally it's working for them somehow, or they wouldn't keep doing it. Yes? So my first question to her and to you is, what are your children getting out of it? I want to give you an example. In my 20s, I was basically the it girl for children that others had given up on. And I ended up becoming basically like a nanny, but a live-in nanny for two boys. The last person who worked with them, they beat up on the public transit. So they were like off the chart, stubborn, strong-willed, defiant, you name it. But I was really cocky and I thought, I've got this down. But the night that dessert went flying past my head, you might have heard my story. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I think. Totally humbling. But what I did notice when I was with the two of them, was that their sibling fights drove me partly crazy because I am such a sensitive soul. I am a highly sensitive person. And oftentimes what we need to do is to take a good spotlight and take it off our children and put it on ourselves and look at what's really going on for us. What is it about their behavior that's really driving us crazy? With this particular mom, one of the things is that this is like a big dream for her. She wants her kids to get along. For other parents, it's that if their children are fighting in public or with their in-laws or at that family dinner, they're embarrassed by it. They see it as it says that they're not a great parent. So the reason this is so important to look at and to understand is because if it's such a sensitive topic for you, if you want it so badly, and you're not even looking at it from their point of view, you're going to be hitting your head against a wall time and time again. And I don't want that for you. And I don't want that for your kids either. So my question is, what's the payoff? What's in it for them? And going back to the boys, I remember being at the kitchen sink and I was doing dishes and there was a little mirror right on a little shelf that was at the sink there. And I happened to be doing dishes and the boys were in the other room and they start yelling. And the youngest is yelling, "Get off me, you're hurting me." And as I'm looking at the mirror, I see that They're on opposite sides of the room. The oldest isn't even touching the youngest. And I remember being like, what? Like, what is going on? And I realized that the youngest had this tendency to cry wolf. He got a lot of attention, not only just attention, but there was drama. He loved drama. The cortisol levels increase. He also gets a huge rise out of his older brother who'd be like, I'm not, da, da, da. And he loved it. And so there was a sense of control and power of making other people get involved. And that might be one for your child. I don't know what it is, but the thing is, you need to know what it is so you can ensure they're getting that payoff in a healthy way, in a useful way, in a contributing way that doesn't drive you crazy. So how does this sound? Is this helpful? I'm also going to mention that when and if you're on the Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group, message me if you have questions on this. Put it down in the chat below. I want you to get this because getting this gives you so much more. Get it when I say getting this, understanding what's in it for them so you can find out how to get it in a healthy way is the key to solving sibling rivalry. The other part is that's really important to talk about. Sometimes we want something so bad, it's like we have a stranglehold. It's like we are holding on to it so tightly that we're not seeing other possibilities, that we're not allowing for our children to step up and say, and use their critical thinking and say, yeah, I actually really want to like my sister. Or I really want to like my brother, or I want to get along and make a fort with them or play that game with them. Until they get what's in it for them, they won't do it. Now, caution. You can then go, often some of the moms, especially the moms who are really good talkers, myself included, then you can go into over-explaining and you can go into reminding and saying, hey, you guys can get along. Well, what if you shared? That would be so nice. But again, check in with, are the words, the intention that's coming out from you really from a curious place, or is it from a demanding, manipulative, you should do this kind of place? Stubborn children, strong-willed children have a sixth sense for coercion, manipulation, and any sort of driving demands. Even if you have a smile on your face, they will feel it. So that's why it's so important to look at the mirror and really look at yourself hard and figure out, why is this so important to you? Is it that your ego's on the line and you think you're not going to be a good parent? Is it that you just have sadness about your own relationship with your brother or sister? Or do you have such a great relationship with your brother or sister you just so desperately want for your kids? Understandable. But if you're coming from that desperation, they're going to feel it and they're going to fight you, even if they don't know consciously that that's what they're doing. So how does this sound? I'm just looking at the rest of my notes here to see if there's anything else. The last thing I am going to share is the more you can invite conversation. So there's some questions that I would invite you to consider. They would sound, and obviously make them in your own words and make them your own, but they would kind of sound like, hey, I've noticed you guys aren't getting along. What's up? What's going on? But do you see how I'm not filling the blank? And I'm also not judging and saying, that's wrong, get off of her, da, 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 da. Obviously, intervene if there is a serious chance of physical harm, obviously. Generally speaking, scratches, pinches, those kind of things are just part of growing up. But the more you can ask, and oftentimes it can be during times like a dinner or a time in the car where they are getting along, saying, hey, I'm just curious, like, it's so odd to me, like, I don't understand it. Help me understand what happens in your mind. Now, they might not know right away, but you just asking the question is going to help them start to think, yeah. And say, well, you must like something about it. And they're like, oh, no, we don't like anything about it. Well, but you keep doing it. So it just doesn't make sense to me. So there's got to be something that is kind of maybe even secretively you like. I wonder what that is. And then just leave it, walk away, but don't make it into a big thing. Right now, you're just seeding ideas, seeding sibling solution possibilities so that they're using their own frontal cortex to say, I've actually got a choice in this. Yay. Once they know they have a choice, especially the one who is maybe being picked on or the one who is complaining that, they just took my toy again or that kind of thing. Oftentimes they're getting attention out of it, or they can play the victim role that feels really good to them on a certain level. I welcome your questions. If someone hasn't told you lately, I hope you will remember how grateful and blessed your family is to have you in their life. If you're not yet on my Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group, come on over. I'd love to have you join. And if you are on that, reach out to me. If you have questions, this is a question from one of our members. I want to hear from you. If you have a question or something that's like, Kelly, I just haven't been able to figure this out, I want to help you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye now.